And we've got already 30th of April. 30th of April, that is 5 days after Anzac Day. Lest we forget. And that's exactly how I titled the sermon today. Because it is lest we forget, isn't it? People are celebrating things in their lives. And last week or last Monday we celebrated Anzacs. Or what the Anzacs have done for other people. It was Winston Churchill that was honoring a memory of Royal Air Force pilots who sacrificed their lives in the defense of Britain, where he said that never in the history of mankind have so many owned so much to so few. And similar statements we can see around the world in various places where few people have sacrificed everything in the interest or to benefit multitudes. This is fitting words because it takes courageous people who can make sacrifice. We want to remember, we celebrate things, and we still forget. And we say that we don't want to forget, but it happens that we do forget. Another battle took place, and we know of which one we are talking about, where it was only one soldier, one man that sacrificed everything in order that all could benefit, that all could own to him everything that they would have if they choose so. We know we are talking about Jesus, who sacrificed everything. He gave his life to free people from the slavery of sin. He gave his life in order that beggars no longer would need to live like beggars. That prisoners could be released. That slaves could be released and live like children of the King. But there is, of course, as we were doing it in the Sabbath school lesson, an ongoing conflict where without battle it doesn't happen, that those benefits can be experienced or can be part of our experience. There is always somebody that is interested that even when we are trying to say, lest we forget, and remind ourselves that he is making utmost efforts that people will forget that. And when they forget that they live like beggars, live like slaves, live like prisoners. A good illustration of that could be that situation that Jesus is sharing in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verses 21 through to 35, where he is talking about the servant who owned some money, and he was called by the Lord to give an account. And after he had given an account, the Lord forgave him all of his debt. Probably he was not expecting that it would happen. I mean, I can imagine him jumping up and down and rejoicing when he experienced that, and it was like he would be over the moon when he experienced that. But the memory of that experience didn't last long, for he forgot. Somebody was interested that he will forget that. And then the next thing that he sees down the road is the debtor to himself. A fellow who was owing him a couple of denarii. And he grabs him by the throat and he says, "You have to repay all your debt." Now we can see how unfair situation it was, where he, in view of his all debt being forgiven, when he was basically let go without repaying anything, now he obviously have forgotten the benefit that he just received. And he is demanding that the person who owed him few cents compare. And he is insisting that those denarii will be repaid. How often the enemy is succeeding in us forgetting the benefits of the cross, the benefits of forgiveness. You know, if we are forgiven so much, wouldn't it be expected, wouldn't it be normal that we would be equally inclined and prepared to forgive others? Wouldn't it be normal that we will be looking with grace at those around us, and we would say, well, yes, it's not fair, but we can live with it. Or, I will pray for you, I will support you in order that the things that is unfair doesn't happen anymore. That would be normal, wouldn't it? That's what Jesus would be expecting from the woman that was caught in adultery. Would that be true? He says, well, I don't condemn you, but go and sin more. Is that what he said? No, he said, go and sin no more. He forgave her, he didn't condemn her, but he was not encouraging her to continue on within the life that she was continuing before. This is what forgiveness is all about. This is what Jesus came for, that we would be forgiven the debt that we have, the trespasses that we have, in order that we could live like son and daughter of a king who is so rich that can afford forgiving 100 denarii debt in comparison. Jesus wants us to remember, as we are going through our lives, he wants us to remember how much he has done for us, in order that would be a motivating factor in our own lives, so we can change our own lives. And as a result, we can change and encourage and attract people to do the same choice. So that way we are becoming more like him, loving and forgiving, loving and lovable. Would that the communion service be the service, lest we forget, in order that it would benefit our lives, benefit of not only our own lives, but the lives of those around us, and as a result, benefit the whole community, the whole world, as a result of benefit that Jesus gave to humanity. We are encouraged to meditate, to rethink, to think about what Jesus has done for me. and see how I can repay the debt. I can never repay, but I can be an agent of change for Jesus. When we are looking at the experience of the Lord's Supper, we are finding that account in First Corinthians chapter 11, verses beginning with 24. But when we are looking at the whole experience of Lord's Supper, we can have a few different perspectives or a few different focuses that we can look at when we are going through and when we are meditating on what Jesus has done for us. In 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 26, we read these words. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this blood, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. For when we are looking at what Jesus has done for us, we can look at that and we can see what Jesus has done for me. How much of a debtor was I, and how much I owe him. And in that way, we can look at the love that was motivating him, the love that Jesus demonstrated to me, in order that the Scripture is telling us that while we were still, Jesus did not look for anything that would indicate that there was a change in me that is worth investing his love in me. He sacrificed in order that that would be the motivating factor in my change while I was still rebelling against him. That maybe, possibly, by chance, I will resonate with that love. And I will surrender my own life to him, that he will be Lord of my life. That is one of the ways that is encouraged here through the Lord's Supper, that we look back what Jesus has done for us. Then we can look also in a bit different way. When we look inside of us, when we go to verse 28, we read these words, but let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of the bread and drink of the cup. We are in this verse encouraged to examine ourselves. We need to look at where what is it doing to us? What do I see? How do I live? What do I do? That means that the sacrifice that Jesus have made for my sake, that is making a change in my lives. Where do I invest my own resources? Where do I invest my own self? What is important for me? How much do we keep in the steps of holiness? That may mean different things, but what it means in the first place, that it means that I follow him. That's the holiness. That is where he is the Lord of my life. That means that I am the one that is different to the rest. Not in the worst sense, but in the best sense. If the sacrifice of Jesus has not made any difference in my life, then what's the point of it? Jesus is encouraging us so we can make a difference. How much Jesus is number one in my life. That's what it is, isn't it? That I examine myself, that his sacrifice brings fruit in my life. That's the way we can meditate on. Is that what Jesus wants to achieve in my life? Once an employer advertised a job. And in the foyer to his office, where everyone was going to interview, he placed a mirror. And on the top of that mirror, he wrote a message. would you employ that person? This is what Jesus wants to do with us. He wants us to examine ourselves. Is my sacrifice, is my investment making difference in your life? Would you employ that person? Would you have that person as an ambassador of the kingdom of heaven? That's what it is all about. Lord's Supper is a moment of self-reflection. What else? What other part of my life I need to submit to the lordship of Jesus? There may be few. We may have gone through an experience of conversion, but not every part of our lives have been converted. Possible? That maybe there are some aspects that still need to be defeated. Still are the strongholds of the enemy in our territory. Possible? Is it coming up sometimes in your life? Well, this is an opportunity to introduce Jesus into this and plead with Jesus that he will help us to defeat that stronghold. That is the journey to holiness. That is the journey towards being different, towards being more like Jesus. That's what eventually, that's what he wants to see. A reflection of his own character in our own lives. How did the disciples of Jesus were recognized in the crowd? Oh, they had red socks. Did you come across that one? Yeah, I did. But the scripture is telling us something different. They recognized themselves because they loved each other. The love was evident in their lives. The love of Jesus had made a difference in their lives, and it was evident no matter where they were in the crowd that they could be picked up. They have come in touch with Jesus, and they were not ignorant. There was a change that took place. There is also another look that we can experience. We can look around us and appreciate the value of the group of the believers within which we are living. You know, we are not living as islands. The fact that we are living in a country that was established on the principles of the Bible has shaped us. There are things that are good and that are common sense to you only because you grew up in the environment of Christian country. And how many people grew up in the country that is not Christian? Anyone? Any that grew up in the non-Christian country? Yes? Yes. Hindu. That's true. Not everything is there that makes sense or is good according to Christian principles. True? Obviously. So, we've got the benefits of living in that country. You can imagine, you can complain about that country because it has problems. True? But you would be a completely different person if you were living in different country with different principles. We know that. You can complain about the church that you grew up. I'm coming closer. Because that church may have problems. But you can also think of the difference it would make if you were not growing up in that church. That church also shaped you, benefited you in who you are, because you grew up in the setting of the people who were around you, for whom certain things were okay, certain things were not okay. And that shaped you. So when we are looking at that, we can look at, and appreciate the things that are around us. It may be difficult to live in the environment, in the group of people where people have high standards. Is it? High expectations. It may be difficult, because you will find very often yourself in the situation where you are not matched, when you are lacking somewhere on something. True? But I can encourage you and tell you that it is much, much more difficult to keep your high standards within the group of people who is not interested in holding any high standards. It's much more difficult to keep those high standards. So the benefit of looking at at what we are benefiting when we are living in that group, the benefit that we can have as we are meditating what Jesus has done for us, how Jesus shaped up their people, how we are benefited by other people by living in the environment of these people. And then we can look also into the future. We can look at what Jesus has done for us. That is not only that was not only important for us in the past, is important at the moment, but we can look also for the things that we benefit in the future. And we're going back to verse 26, which says that Jesus says that he will not drink of this cup until he comes. Verse 26 actually says we are witnessing, we are proclaiming Lord's death till he comes. He is talking about something that he has prepared in the future, and we can look at that benefit, look at what Jesus has prepared for us. The Lord's Supper is typically an Adventist celebration. It is the celebration of the people who are waiting for return of the Lord, because he said that he will celebrate that Lord's Supper again when he comes back. As we are taking part in the foot washing service, if we did not do it before, meditate on Jesus in preparation. Let's meditate on those various aspects of how the life of Jesus is benefiting me, and maybe what Jesus would like me to change or submit in my life in view of his cross. I would like to encourage each one of you to take part in that foot washing service, and then we recess here to continue the rest of the service. May God bless you.